Good evening, everybody. How's it going? Welcome to our webinar, Learn to Deal with Negative Emotions. My name is Vincent Kelly. I am from the South East Midlands, Kildare, and I've been delivering help to people through webinars and seminars and on a one-to-one basis for over 25 years. And I really like to help people to understand more about how they can improve their lives, how they can get better, and how to make things go right. That's basically what my purpose is. I would like to welcome everybody who has joined us tonight on Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. I usually do those in the other order for some reason, and I realized tonight, why do I use the Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram hierarchy? It can be said the other way too. But also particularly everybody on Zoom. So I've got Zoom open beside me. So when we're on the webinar tonight, you can at any point put comments into the chat. You can ask questions. And if it's on Zoom, it'll come here directly to me. And if it's on the other platforms, you can still put your comments in. And I've got somebody keeping an eye on those platforms. And it will come back around to me through Zoom. So you will get your question answered. And also during the webinar, I'll be asking you for some examples yourself. And I don't mean you have to participate, but if you could give me some examples on the chat, it would be most appreciated. Okay, so before I begin, I just want to welcome everybody directly on Zoom. So welcome Nessa, Marta, Paul, Gonzalo, Deirdre, Mr. iPhone, Bindu, Claudia, Katia, and Yasmin. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. As usual, I would love to find out where you are all from. So if you're from Ireland, put your county down, or your city, or your town, because I usually know it. Unless it's a tiny little town like where I'm from, then maybe I won't. But if you wouldn't mind, pop where you're from into the chat. So if you're from Ireland, pop in your county. If you're from another country, pop in the city or the country, and that would be great. We'll just see where you're all from. Hi, Gonzalo. Hello. Yasmin, Dublin. Good stuff. You're from SAP. Where is SAP? No idea. Katia, welcome from London. Welcome to you. Welcome. Delighted to have you. Bindu, Dublin. Good stuff, Bindu. London. Wonderful. I love London. A bunch of relatives living in London. My family all moved over there in the 50s, and half of them stayed. So we're all kind of the builders in London. I came from a building background. My dad and all his brothers were builders, so we went over there in the 50s, and some of them came back. My dad came back, but a lot of them didn't. Okay, Gonzalo from Spain. I live in London. Wonderful, great. Claudia, you from Clare? Great, Claudia. I love Clare. I love the Burren down there. The Burren is an area of, what would you call it? Limestone? I think it's limestone. It's beautiful. Nessa from Cork. I would love to speak in a Cork accent right now, but I would make a complete mess of it. Yeah, all I know is I've been down to the Cork City Hall many times doing the Mind, Body, Spirit Festival down there. It's been wonderful. And then Deirdre is from Limerick. Good stuff, Deirdre. I stayed in Limerick back when I was visiting, what's that? The Cliffs of Moher. Yeah, it's lovely to stay in Limerick and then to drive to the Cliffs of Moher. It's absolutely wonderful. And you're from London as well, Katia. That is fantastic. And hi, Anya there. I see you have your camera on. And who else joined us there? Yasmin. Hi, Anya. Yasmin, Beatrice, Lisa. Hi, Florence. I see you there as well. Good to have you on board. Thank you very much, everybody. Okay, so thanks very much for introducing yourselves, and let's get started. So, this webinar is the free introductory webinar to a 4-part online course that I deliver on a Friday night in 4 modules. And I will tell you more about it at the end, but it's based on this book called Dianetics, which means through the mind. And everything that you're going to learn tonight is in this book. Okay, you'll find out the data in the book, which will help you to be able to follow forward on it. Okay, so now, when we're talking about negative emotions, I want to just clarify what this is. So now what I'm going to take now, if anybody has the Dianetics book, this is on page 31 of the Dianetics book. We're going to break down emotions into a number of zones, okay? So we have zones, and we've got 4, we've got zone 3, we've got zone 2, we've got zone 1, and then we've got zone 0, okay? So now we're just going to, these are kind of general zones of emotion. So the first one here is happy mentally, okay? So in this area we have enthusiasm, creativity. That's the emotion in that zone. It's enthusiastic, it's very creative, very alive emotion. Okay? As we go down here, how do we phrase it? General happiness. Okay, so this is the next, okay, happiness. This is the next zone down. So somebody in this bracket is happy. They're content. They're interested in life. They're not enthusiastic. They're not like, yeah, let's go and, tackle things and, But they get up in the morning and things are going well and, they're pretty happy. And I'm sure you know people like that. People that are actually happy. Kids are often like that. In fact, kids are usually up in this band here. They get up, they can't wait to get up in the morning and get out and play with their friends. They can't wait to go to school in many cases, not in all cases, but they are generally up here, but they're usually here as well. Okay? Now, as we go down here, we have this zone called bearable. Bearable existence. It basically means the person is kind of putting up with life. It's kind of bored. That's basically what it is. It's not enthusiastic. It's not going badly. They're kind of sitting on the fence, bored. Not really sure. Maybe I should do something with my life. Maybe I shouldn't. I'm not sure. Life isn't going too bad, but it's boring. Okay, so this is that area there. Now, I'm going to put these in a different color. Let's just put it down here. So now we have this zone here, and these are the zones that we're going to kind of focus in on a little bit tonight. The next zone down here is zone 1, which is anger. Now, that zone of anger has got different kind of aspects of it. There are aspects where a person can be very critical. For example, if you're very critical all the time, critical of somebody, critical of life, critical of the government, critical of, your environment, always finding fault with things, that would be what we call antagonism. Unfriendly. So if you know somebody who's usually very unfriendly, this would be the kind of higher band here. We just call it antago. Okay? Now, as we go down here, you meet anger itself. If you meet somebody who's very angry, it's kind of easy to see that. Somebody who's just, they eat your head off. If you say the wrong thing to them, they just kind of snap, or they break things, slam doors, Teenagers kind of get like that sometimes when their parents are trying to get them to do something that, clean your room. Why do you always say those things to me? Slam the door, it's like anger. That can happen sometimes. And then as we go down here, the anger gets kind of suppressed or hidden to a point where we get to covert hostility. Sorry, the H is not a fantastic H. Okay, covert hostility. What that basically means is that you feel hostile towards somebody. In other words, you're not friendly towards them. You don't like them. You're quite angry with them, but you're pretending everything's fine. So it's covert. It's hidden. So if you have somebody like that in your life who's very friendly, is totally delighted, but they're really afraid to express their true emotion, which is anger. So it's kind of like suppressed anger covered with little paste and a little smile. That's what we call covert hostility. It's still in this band, and it's something that you have to watch out for in yourself and in others, because it can sometimes be mistaken for happiness, which it isn't. Okay, now we go down here to the next zone here, and down here we have apathy. Now that word apathy means I have given up. What's the point? What is the point in doing anything about my relationship? What is the point in trying to make a new goal for myself? I'm going to fail anyway. What's the point in doing anything? That's pretty low. That's apathy. Now, there are higher sections of this. So up on the top end, we have, let's say, anxiety. where a person is kind of worried about things all the time, anxious about stuff regularly. As we go down here, we have fear. A person is literally just afraid to do things, afraid to go out and meet people, afraid to take a chance, afraid to open up their own business, afraid to do many things, or could be generally afraid. Okay. Now, as a person goes down here, they go down into sadness. A person is just very unhappy, and we'll just put sadness and grief here. A person gets very sad a lot of the time, crying, upset very easily. That's what we call grief. And then on the very bottom here, then we have apathy. Okay? So this is the general scale of emotions. Now, when we're talking about negative emotions, we're generally talking about this section. People usually do not want to get rid of their happiness. They usually don't want to get rid of their creativity or their enthusiasm. They don't want to see their kids losing their enthusiasm. They don't want to see their friends not being happy. Okay, bored is kind of middle ground. But generally, these are the areas which people find not pleasant. So these are the negative emotions that we're going to be kind of focusing on tonight. Now, everybody experiences these at some point, of course. For example, if you lose somebody close to you and you love that person, you're not necessarily going to be all enthusiastic that day, are you? Or that week, or for that month. You are going to hit this point of grief. But you would expect that after a certain time, a person will come back up to their natural level. This is generally the natural level for most people. Happiness, this is where you should be. This is where you are. If you look at children, they are there naturally. So if you experience grief, which is quite natural, it would be expected that you would be moving back up soon afterwards. Okay? Let's take another one. Fear. Okay, so let's say you are, driving through a rough neighborhood and it's 2 o'clock in the morning and you've got a flat tire and there's gangs of people around you and so forth. Well, you could experience fear for that moment, okay? Kind of gives you a little bit maybe of heightened senses or whatever it does, but you would expect that once you're out of that environment, then the fear will go away and you'll feel fine again. Same one, anger here. Okay, so if somebody, you look out your window at night and somebody is stealing your car. Now, you might just call the police, maybe you would. Sometimes people open their window and they get absolutely furious. Get your head out of my car, please. And you don't have to be very polite about it, but you could feel this anger if that situation is happening. But again, it would be expected that you have that for a short period of time because it kind of suits the situation, and then you move back up to your natural level again. So all these emotions, you're quite free to experience them. The problem comes about when you can't shake these negative ones. In other words, you can't shake the anger. You're going around angry all the time. Or you can't shake the sadness. You're just going around sad all the time. And the thing that happened passed 2 years ago, but you're still sad. Or you're still afraid. You're in a safe environment. You were not in a safe environment 4 years ago, but now you are in a safe environment. So there's absolutely no reason for you to be feeling fear. But yet you still feel it. So how do these things affect a person in life? As an example, a person could, let's say a woman could be married and have kids. And every day she could be losing her temper and getting very angry with her kids or her partner for no reason at all. That could happen. And it can also happen the other partner, the husband, comes in and slams the door and is angry and snappy. Or you could be anxious about things. You could be constantly worried about what's going to happen to you. So, for example, you are physically well. Your neighbor is sick. And you know that if you take precautions, you're not going to contract their illness. But instead of that, and you kept your precautions in, you're still worrying about things. That's getting stuck here. And then sadness as well. So a person can be sad for a moment and then it should lift after a while. But some people are, there's no reason to be sad. In other words, what happened 5 years ago. But yet the person is still sad, or gets sad regularly over small things, or gets upset very easily, or cries very easily. So these are the basic zones of emotion. Now, what I'd like to do is I'd like to break for a moment, and I'd like to ask you, my wonderful audience, I'd like you to think of some examples for yourself, and if you wouldn't mind, pop them into the chat, and I'll pop them on the board. Can you give me some examples of emotions that are negative, that either affect you or affect somebody else in a negative way? Now, I'm not talking about these emotions that you have in the right circumstance, like you're sad because you've lost your dog, okay? It's quite natural. Or you're angry because something happened, somebody broke your window, or whatever it is, okay? These are quite natural. I'm looking for an emotion that you have, or a friend of yours has, that's a negative emotion that you don't like, but it's hard to shake. Okay? So if you wouldn't mind, this is your first practical exercise of the webinar. Think of a negative emotion that you or a friend has that you find it hard to shake. And if you wouldn't mind, pop it into the chat and I'll have a look at it. Okay. Yes, Gonzalo, I am studying people who to trust. Good question. Well, hopefully this will help you. Rage. Yeah, that's a good one. That's in this band here. So thank you, iPhone person. Okay, so we have rage. That would be an intense degree of anger. Thank you very much. Jealousy. Yes, Katya, brilliant. That jealousy comes in under here to a certain degree. Okay, so there's an element for the person who is jealous, there's an element of insecurity. Okay, so that would be, there's kind of a blend of fear, and it can also fit in here into the antagonism where the person is constantly suspicious. But in any event, that jealousy, if it's not something that can be shaken, it's usually down in this band here. Okay, very good. Thank you, Katya. Yasmin, loneliness. Yeah, perfect. Thank you, Yasmin. Now, that loneliness, yes, let's say, for example, you are in lockdown, you have no friends calling over, and no contact with people. It's definitely something that is affected everybody on this planet at the moment, or has done so to a certain degree. But then some people work their way around it and try to do creative things to get out of it, and then some people just get stuck in it. So if that case is there where a person is just stuck in the loneliness and doesn't feel they can do anything about it, it would be down in this kind of band here, the sadness band. Thank you very much, Yasmin. Resentment, yes, that's perfect. That's a really good one. Resentment fits in here. Okay. It's not really anger, but it's like a kind of a mild form of anger, kind of suppressed. I hate you, but I'm not going to tell you right now, but you're hopefully going to pick it up from my facial expressions. Okay, good. Cynical. Yeah. Again, the cynical thing, brilliant example. Who gave me that? Who gave me cynical? Keshan. Thank you, Keshan. Yeah, cynical fits in here into this antago area. It means kind of finding fault with somebody, finding, nitpicking. A person could be completely fine, but they're nitpicking. Okay, iPhone, I don't know what Althea means. Maybe you can explain that to us. Althea and narcissism, yeah, and put down, because many people don't know what narcissism or Althea means. Sorry, Althea to everyone. Narcissism, yeah. Okay, I don't know whether those are words that you're putting in or not. Just put down for everybody else what those mean, please, if you don't mind. Bindu, ego, superiority or inferiority complex. Yeah, superiority or inferiority. It kind of would fit in under here. It doesn't mean that somebody can't feel good about themselves. Of course, a person can feel good about themselves, but they're looking down on somebody that means it's kind of this area here, again, antago, which is feeling superior to everybody else, which basically you could say, you know what, it means that other people are not good. They're not as good as I am, you know. Okay, inferiority, Gonzalo, these low emotions make me irrational. We'll go into this in a moment, Gonzalo. It's a name. Althea is a name. Okay, thank you, Althea. Sorry. People spreading rumours without knowing facts. Defamation. Yeah. People spreading rumours. Again, it would probably fit into this. Well, I tell you what. It's going to fit nicely into here. Covert hostility. In other words, you've got somebody who is not going up to the person's face and telling them, listen, I really have a problem with what you just did. You just, I don't know, you drink 3 times a week and I don't like that, let's say. But instead of telling it to your face, I'm going to tell all my friends because I'm afraid to tell it to your face. I'd rather just spread the rumor. Okay? So that's a good one, Florence. Thank you. Like feeling, oh God, I lost it again. Yeah, okay. So again, this kind of fear of loss kind of goes in here to the anxiety band. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for those brilliant examples. Much appreciated. Now, so what we're trying to do is trying to get in control of this area here, the stuff that is following you that you don't like. So I'm going to give you 2 pieces of information tonight. One of them I'm going to spend a very short amount of time on, which is something that you can use on an immediate basis to help you to get back up here into this band. Okay? And the second thing I'm going to give you is the thing that ruins the first thing. In other words, I'm going to give you step 1 that you can use, which will help, and then I'm going to give you step 2, which is the ultimate solution, because if this isn't handled, then step 1 isn't going to be anyway permanent. Now, as I'm going through this, if you think of any examples, please do not do not hesitate to pop them into the chat for me. Okay, so now we're going to have a look at a little concept here. You know that your emotions fluctuate, they go up and down in relation to different things. Okay, so you will find that when you're in certain situations, or you're with certain people, or you're doing certain things, that can affect your emotion. Now, the first little tip for you, and the first step that you can use in order to help yourself to become more yourself and happier is, this is the first tip. Make a list of things, people that upset you. Okay, so this is just a little tip for you, okay? So you will find that there are certain things and people that make you change your mood. In other words, you were feeling happy and now you're feeling stressed out, or you're feeling anxious, or you're feeling sad, or you're feeling angry, and you weren't like that before. Before you started doing this thing, or before you started associating with this person, you were feeling fine. And now you're feeling bad. So the first thing you do is make a list of things or people that upset you. So for example, let's say if you made a list that watching horror movies before you go to bed at night makes you dream a lot, which then makes you not have enough sleep, which makes you grouchy in the morning. Maybe watching horror movies just before you go to bed at night could be something that you could knock out. So you're going to make a list of the things and people that upset you, and you work out how not to do them for a while and just see how it goes. Okay? Or let's say if every day at 2 o'clock you have a bag of sweets because you've realized, you know what? I deserve my bag of sweets. I'm going to have my bag of sweets. But after you've eaten your bag of sweets, you just don't feel good. You feel like, you know what? I told myself so many times I wouldn't do this, but yeah, I'm doing it. So you would, as an example, try to knock out doing that. Now, how does this apply to people? Now, look, obviously, I'm not saying to you that if your dad upsets you or your mum upsets you that you would stop talking to them. I'm not saying that at all. What I'm saying is that let's take an example. Let's say somebody knocks on your door every day, a neighbour, and asks you, hey, should we go for a walk? Great idea. Okay, so you go out for your walk, but while you're on your walk, this neighbour is constantly saying bad things about everybody else. And not only that, they're constantly saying bad things about you as well, just slipping in a little comment now and again, slipping in a little comment about you. And so when you come back from your walk, even though you did get a bit of exercise, your opinion of yourself has just gone down. You feel sad, you feel stressed, you don't know why, you think it's yourself. So a solution for that could be the neighbour calls over, or you give them a call or send them a text, say, listen, is there any way we can skip walking for the next couple of weeks? Just because, I don't know, because, come up with something. Come up with something that's honest. You know, you want to study more. You've got to get exams done or something. Or you want to focus more on your indoor exercise. Or it's too cold outside. Or whatever it is. It's not to say that you have to lie or put people off. But it means that if you know that that person upsets you every time, you know, you have a right not to communicate if you don't want to. All I'm saying with this one here is just try these things. Make a list of those things in your life and people that upset you. And for the things, try not to do them for a while. For me, for example, I found that when I watch the news, and usually when you watch the news, if you watch the news every day, it's just, I mean, it starts off with quite a lot of bad news. There's always bad news, bad news, bad news. And then they tell you something about the football, you know, or something about celebrity, just to lighten it at the end. But it's just pound you with the bad news. And for me personally, a long time ago, I was like, you know, this, I just don't like it because it worries me. Every time I finish watching the news, I get worried. So I kind of cut that out, you know, and then I have select places where I look for news that I think is, you know, constructive and factual. So that would be that. And so just make a list of things and then cut them out for a while and just see how you feel. Cut them out for a while and see how you feel. And with the people element of it, as I said, look, I'm not trying to say not talk to your family or anything like that, but if there's somebody that is upsetting you regularly, you know, maybe you can just, you know, not call in on them this evening and just see how you feel. Okay? Obviously, if that person is urgently needing medication, then I'm not saying do that, but just something that you can try. So, repeat this again. Make a list of things and people that upset you. Try not to do those things for a while. Try not to hang around with those people for a while. That could be a day, it could be 2 days, and just see how you feel. Okay? That's the first one. Now, this is all wonderful in theory, Vincent. Vincent, great idea. I'm going to do my list tonight. I'm actually writing it as we speak. Wonderful, Vincent. You have great ideas there. Why didn't we think of it? Or, I already do that. Doesn't work. Why doesn't it work? Why is it that you do these lists and nothing seems to change because you just get back down into the swamp again? Well, we're going to go over this exactly why. The reason why you lose control of your emotions and you can't follow through with things is that there's a hidden influence. There's something affecting you that's kind of internal. It's not you, but it's something that you're carrying with you. And for anybody who's been on my webinars before will know where I'm going with this. Now, so very quickly, I'm just going to tell you what the problem is. Okay, so really and truly, you should be able to experience all these emotions from apathy, anger, happy, enthusiastic, in the correct situation. So for example, if you win the lottery, you're not going to be in apathy. You know, it would be natural for you to be in enthusiasm. Yay, I won the lottery. Or if somebody stole your car, okay, I don't think I'd be very enthusiastic if I looked out my window and my car was gone. I think I'd be kind of angry about it. So these are natural, all right? And so when you are living life You are processing all the information that you see and hear and feel. And this information is stored. You have a record of that. You have memories. All right, you'll see where this is going in a minute. Please don't get lost in the whole, where I'm going. Just bear with me. You store all this information in, like what we call a computer. We just call this the mind. It's a collection of memories, a collection of pictures. So you have your own photo album that you carry around with you all the time. And it's in date order, and it's not just pictures. It contains information, temperatures, sounds, tastes, smells, body sensations, sense of weight, sense of temperature, all these types of things. So these pictures store up everything. So now when you look at a situation in your life, goes in, you process it, and you come out with a thought. Okay, the first thing that you come out with is a thought. And as I mentioned before, in the people who were on the last webinar, thought is boss. How you're thinking is boss. Your thinking determines the next thing, which is the emotion. So before emotion comes thought. So if you think, you know what, I don't think I'm going to get this job. I think that this interview is going to be too tough for me. Now, that thought is not going to bring you into that interview in enthusiasm. It's going to bring you into that interview maybe in fear. Maybe you'll be very anxious. So the first thing is the thought, and the next thing is the emotion. If you go into the interview, you think, before you go in, you think, you know what? I've studied well for this job. I know I can do this job. I'm as good as anybody else. And I have a very, very high chance of getting this job. There's a much more stronger possibility you're going to go in there in enthusiasm, or at least interested. In other words, you're going to go in with a positive attitude, naturally, and you're going to go in with these emotions. And the likelihood of you getting the job is much higher. Why? Because the next thing is action, or effort. So, the first thing, before you're experiencing an emotion, you have a thought. After the thought comes the emotion. After the emotion comes the action. So you decide, you know what? I'm going to go in there. I'm going to do my very best to get this interview, and that's your action, and you're going to go in there very positive. You're going to hold your body quite well. You're going to be very, calm. Your actions are also going to communicate. Whereas if you go in and you think, you know what, there's no way I'm going to make this. I'm not ready. I'm not good enough. That's going to cause this fear, and the action, the effort of your body is going to start getting nervous. Going to start shaking or whatever it is. So that's the first thing, thought. Now, so if your mind is in very good condition, in other words, if you're thinking clearly, you're thinking quite clearly all the time, those thoughts are going to be generally quite positive. Naturally. People say to me all the time, Vincent, you know what's much better than what you're talking about is positive thinking. I don't have anything against positive thinking. It's great. The problem is, from my perspective, is that a person should be naturally thinking positively without having to do it. Kids wake up in the morning and they're like, you know what? I think I'll be a spaceman today. I'm going to call in my neighbour. Ma'am, can you bring me to town? Yeah, but the car's broken down. I don't care. Bring me to town. Come on, let's go. We can do this. Kids are generally very positive. You see it with teenagers as well. They can do things, and parents look at them in disbelief. What are you doing this for? Artists won't make it, and the kid thinks, or the teenager thinks, you know what, I can do this. So if your mind is in good condition, your thoughts will be in good condition, and then your emotions will generally be in good condition and appropriate to the circumstance. So if you're thinking clearly when somebody's stealing your car, anger may be the right emotion. Or if you're thinking clearly and you've lost somebody close to you, fear or apathy or grief could be the correct emotion. So what I'm saying to you is that the emotion is generally appropriate to the circumstance if you're thinking clearly. Now, let's get to the thing that's ruining it. So, everything gets stored in your mind in date order. Okay, this is your mind. We're not going to get any more complicated than that. That's what it is. Now, there is a hidden compartment. And this hidden compartment is reactive. What reactive means is basically push button. In other words, so there's a part of your mind that is not under your control. It's a push button part of the mind. I'm going to tell you what's in it in a minute, but it's basically a push button. Now this word reactive, okay? Some of you maybe if you went to science in school, you've heard that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So in other words, you do an action, it's something that you do, and the reaction is the response that you get. Okay? Okay, it's the response. It's like an automatic response. If I go to London and I go to Trafalgar Square, and Trafalgar Square has historically been full of pigeons, and I have some thing that's going to create a loud bang, and I make a loud bang, maybe I have a set of cymbals with me. Obviously, they're so used to people clapping now that they don't even fly anymore. They're so used to it. But if you make a loud bang, that bang is the action, and the reaction is all those pigeons going up in the air automatically. They don't think. In other words, they don't think, okay, hang on a second. I've just heard a bang. Now, is that bang a threat? Or maybe it's somebody just playing or messing. The pigeon doesn't sit there analysing where this sound came from. Doesn't. There's no analysing happening because there's no analytical mind in operation there. It's just reactive. You make this loud bang, the pigeon flies up automatically. That's what we call push button. It's reactive. And there's a part of your mind that's push button. So you have maybe somebody in your life, maybe a brother or a sister, who knows a little bit about your past, and they know that just by pressing that button, they're going to cause you to react. Just by talking to you in a certain way, they're going to pull on your heartstrings. That's what we call reactive. And that's why we call this segment the reactive mind. Now, what's in here? And you'll see the importance of why it's necessary to know this in a few minutes and how it relates to emotion. So please bear with me. What's in here? Now, the full definition of this is in the Dianetics book on page 50, and I'll show you more about this at the very end. So, there's a part of your mind that's push button, which means it's not under your control. Now, in this part of the mind, there are two things. Number one is physical pain. In other words, moments of, a time when you were as a kid doing a performance on a stage and you fell off the stage onto the ground and you really hit your head very hard on the concrete. That would be an example of physical pain and impact. Because when that happens, the lights go out up here and the information is stored in this little compartment here called the reactive mind, which keeps recording the information. The next thing that gets stored is emotional pain. Now, I'm not just talking about, getting angry with somebody or whatever. I'm talking specifically about loss. Loss or threat of loss. When you lose somebody close to you, or there's a threat of losing somebody close to you, or losing a job, or losing a pet, or losing something that you really care about, when that loss comes in, or when that threat of loss hits you, again, there's an impact. And when that impact comes in, that part of your mind, which usually thinks very, very clearly, switches off, and the information gets stored in here in a bit of a mess. So, let me just track back a bit. The reason why you lose control of your emotions, mainly, is because there's a part of your mind that is not under your control. It's push button. It contains the moments from your past where you endured physical pain, or you experienced physical pain and impact and unconsciousness, and the moments when you experienced heavy emotional pain or loss. Each one of us is carrying around this baggage. And I'm going to give you a couple of examples now about how it reacts, because what happens is, you could be feeling great. You've done your list. You know, you're starting off on a new positive life. You've got your New Year's resolutions made. Everything's going to be just wonderful. And then you hit something in life that's similar to this, or in some way triggers it. This part of your mind can start affecting the way you think, and the way you think then affects the emotion, and then that affects the action. In other words, there is a push-button part of your mind that you are carrying around with you, and it's reactive. All it takes is something similar in the present to match with something in this baggage section for it to get triggered. And this part of your mind thinks clearly, but this part of your mind, here's how it thinks. Anything equals anything, equals anything, equals anything, equals anything. So it doesn't make a difference to this part of your mind if that thing and this thing have got differences. It just sees them as the same. I'll give you a couple of examples in a minute which I wrote down for you. And by the way, if anybody has any questions, you can pop them into the chat. Okay, so I'm going to give you a couple of examples that I created for you, and then I'm going to ask you for your own. I'm going to ask you for an example of a time you reacted and you experienced an emotion you didn't want. Okay, now, so let's say you had a boyfriend. Let's say you're a girl, you had a boyfriend or your partner, and you had a moment 2 years ago where you almost broke up. Now, it was very, very intense and very shocking, very, very upsetting. And that loss, even though you didn't lose the person, but the threat of the loss is stored in here, in this reactive mind. Now, you've forgotten about it, 2 years have passed, but now up here in present time, you're having an argument with your boyfriend. And he's saying to you, well, you know what, you always react like this, you're always like that, you're always the same. Now, if there's enough similarity or anything that your partner is saying could potentially trigger this, and so this thing starts kicking in and it starts affecting your emotions. So you can get much, much more upset than you should. Like an argument is an argument. When people have an argument, they can simply, as long as they're communicating well, one person can say, you're an idiot. The other person says, okay, thanks for your opinion. I personally think you're an idiot. The other person says, well, thanks for your opinion. The reason I think you're an idiot is because of that. And if that went back and forth, it'd probably sort it out. But what happens is, this part of your mind takes control. And it can start affecting the way you think, which affects your emotion, and which affects your action. Next example. Okay, let's say you lost a close friend in a car accident. Okay, you heard about this car accident, and it was a major loss for you 10 years ago. Now, you've forgotten about it, you don't think about it anymore, but every time you watch car racing, which actually you love to do, you're interested in car racing, but every time you watch it, you start feeling bad, you get a headache, or you don't know what's wrong with you, Now you don't connect it to the car racing on the television, but what's happening is the car racing on the television is triggering off something in here to do with that loss. And it's causing you to feel sad. Next example, let's say you fell off your bike when you were 10, bad injury, and the next door neighbour comes along and he says, stay there and don't move. Now, when you are in pain, words that are spoken to you also get stuck in here. Okay? So years later, without even realizing it, if there's enough similarity again, and that incident gets triggered, that's going to affect your thinking, and it would cause you possibly to stay in a job that you hate, to not be able to move forward, to not want to move on, simply because those words are stuck in your reactive mind. Stay there and don't move. These words can have a tremendous impact on a person's life, and not because they're hugely important, just because of the way this reactive mind thinks. It doesn't think logically. Okay, so now what I'd like you to do is I've given you the basic cause of what causes you to lose control of your emotions. I'm going to go into the solution in a minute. So what I'd like you to do is give me an example. So this is your turn to participate. Give me an example of a time when you experienced an emotion that you felt you couldn't control. So give me an example of a time when you experienced an emotion that you felt you couldn't control. And please, if you don't mind, if you're on YouTube, Facebook and Instagram, pop it into the comments. If you're on Zoom, pop it into the chat, and I'll get all those comments here now. Okay, so just take a moment to do that. Give me an example of the last time you experienced negative, an emotion that you could not control. And then we're going to move on to the solution to all this. While you're doing that, I'm just going to get rid of this. I'm going to prep the next drawing for you. I think I'll wait actually until we go through one or two of these. Okay, good. Bad news. Okay, Gonzalo, when I receive bad news, I go down the tone scale. This is when we talk about the tone scale. I guess you're referring to that emotional zones that we're talking about. Yeah, that can happen. Receive bad news, and then you can't seem to get yourself up out of it. Now, it is natural, of course, that if you, let's say, you do receive bad news, you can experience these negative emotions. Not that you have to suppress it. You don't have to suppress it, but you should be able to come out of it fairly quickly. Okay? So, thank you. Athea, older sister's bullying me when I was younger, I was fearful. Okay, good example. Well, at the time, you might have been right in being afraid, because I don't know how well they were going to pound you. But if a person is experiencing that continuously afterwards and being fearful in life, then that would be something that would be not in control. Okay, folks, so you can keep those examples coming in, and I will get back to them. Oh, Katya. So from OCD, and sometimes I'm scared for the future, because what if it gets worse? Okay, good. So Katya, as we're talking about this reactive mind, we're talking about emotions that kick in that are not appropriate for the circumstance. So if you're in a safe environment and things are going fine, really and truly, it should be the case where a person is happy mentally, relaxed, being themselves, and in good form. Anything outside of that, that's what we're talking about, this band of the reactive mind, and that's why it needs to get cleared up. So I hope that helps. Okay, folks, now, let's get into the solution. Now, obviously, I gave you a little thing you can do, which is make a list of the things and people that upset you, and maybe don't pay too much attention to them for a while. But judge it. I'm not, on parents and family, judge it, because, you don't want to kind of cut people off either. That's the first thing. And the second thing is this reactive mind that you have is the source of the problem. Now, in this subject called Dianetics, we have a way to clear it up. And the reason I've been doing this for over 25 years, and the only reason, is because it works. And that's it. It's not because it's a amazing philosophy that I really, wants me to write a book. It's not about that. It works. And I like helping people. And I like helping people with things that work and that are natural and that are traditional. What you're about to see is the most natural and traditional method of helping another person that's been with us for thousands of years. Okay? But it's just been broken down into a very exact series of steps that anybody can apply. Now, the procedure that we have is called auditing. Auditing basically means to listen and to guide. Dianetics is done with two people. The person who's doing the helping is called an auditor. An auditor basically means a person who listens and who guides. The person who's receiving the help, got their eyes closed during a session but wide awake, is called a pre-clear. Pre means before, so pre-clear means before clear. And clear is a situation where you've cleared up the pain, you've cleared up the baggage, and you're being yourself again. Does it mean that you're never going to experience a negative emotion in the future? Absolutely not. But it means that you are much more in a position where you'll be able to recover from that really quickly, and you be yourself most of the time when things are going well. When things are going bad, it's natural to feel like maybe a bit frustrated or whatever. Okay, 9 o'clock. Finishes at 9, Katya. Now, the next thing is you're helping the person to go into these bad experiences and get rid of the pain. Using the very exact 10-step procedure of Dianetics. And the end result of Dianetics is, well, it's got two stages really. One is called release, where a person has been released from a lot of the pain and a lot of the stress that they're carrying around with them. And the second is called clear, where a person has just basically got back to themselves again. Have you created a different person? No, you haven't, but you've got the person back to where they used to be, and you're getting off all this stress and this stuff and this pain to a point where it's gone. It's cleared up. It's not going to come back. It's not like help the person for a day and then they feel bad again. No, you're helping the person to get to the root and clear it up. It's like if a guy has a sore foot, all right? Because he has a splinter in his foot. Now, you can give him medication and that's fine and that will help him get rid of the pain. But until you get rid of that splinter, that foot is not going to really clear up permanently. He might forget about it, but it's not going to clear up. You need to get to the root of the problem. And once you get to the root, you take out the splinter, done. It's handled. So this is what auditing is. I'm not going to go into all the different specifics of it, but it's basically about helping a person to return to stuff that's happened to them in the past and dig it up. Is it easy? No, it's not. When you're in it. But to apply it, it's very easy to get in and learn the basic steps of what to do. Is it fast? Not necessarily. It takes different lengths of time for different people because we all carry around a certain amount of baggage. Some people have more than others. So, let me summarize this. Oh yeah, so I think you have this one. Sorry, just ask when does this finish? The reactive mind stuff. Yeah, I hope this answers your question. Clear. This is basically what we're going for in Dianetics, is clear and release. So, this is the solution. So let me just kind of cover these two things, and then I want to explain to you what I recommend for you next. And by the way, if any other has any questions, you can let me know. Kathy, I hope that answers your question, that picture. Okay. Now, so, if you are in a situation where you are carrying around negative emotions and you cannot control them, like you're too sad all the time, you're worrying all the time, you get stressed all the time, you're angry all the time, you're critical all the time, or you know somebody who is. The two things that you can apply are, number one, make a list of those things that upset you and try not to do them for a while. See how it goes. And number two, clear up the reactive mind. Number two is the most important because you're getting to the source of the problem. And that is done with auditing, with this exact procedure. People ask me, can I do it on my own? The answer is no. It's done with two people, and there are specific reasons why that is the case, and I cover that in my online course. Now, so I hope that kind of gives you a picture of what is needed to handle this thing about negative emotion and not being in control of it. Here's what I would recommend. As I told you at the beginning, I do a 4-part online course which is delivered on a Friday between 8 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And on those modules, we take one module at a time. We cover 3 or 4 simple basics which make up this reactive mind so that you understand it more. And then in the 4th module, we go over what you do to actually handle it. We go over that in greater detail. So it's 4 modules, and as part of the enrollment for the course, it's included a copy of this book, Dianetics. There's 500 pages in the book. It's got everything that I've gone over tonight, and it contains the full and exact series of steps to basically use Dianetics. And the whole cost of the whole thing, the whole 4 modules, is €20. And it includes the book. So the whole cost for the whole thing is €20. And there's going to be a link going up in a few minutes to tell you more about that. And I would really, really love for everybody who's here tonight to join me on those modules, because at the end of each module, I give you like an exercise to do, some 5 or 6 questions. You send them to me personally, and I'll make sure that you fully understand it and clear up any questions that you have. So it'll be very, very personal and help you on a one-to-one basis. So that's the Mind Explained. The Mind Explained module. The link has gone up there. Agars, who's helping me tonight, is on that there now. Okay, so now, Florence, is auditing like hypnotherapy? Now, Florence, good question. There is no hypnosis used in Dianetics. 0. Nothing. Because a person has the ability, while wide awake, to return to things that have happened to them in the past and to recover that information. So no, the answer is no. Bindu, what are those 10 steps of auditing? The 10 steps of auditing are explained in the book. In this book there are 3 books. Book 1, Book 2, and Book 3. Book 1 explains to you generally about Dianetics. Book 2 is about the mind, how it works. And Book 3 is the therapy. So Book 3, Chapter 5, explains to you the exact 10 steps that you do, and it gives you loads and loads of examples. It's a bit too much to go into it right now, and we deliver this on seminars that we do to teach people how to do it and so forth, but you can learn it from the book. Okay, folks, so we're coming to the end. I want to just pause for a moment and see if anybody has any questions that you'd like to ask, or any comments, anything. Maybe you've learned something. Maybe there's some query that you have. Please feel free to pop it into the chat, and I'd be delighted to answer it. If you don't want to, don't worry about it. We'll be sending you a link afterwards with the link for the online course, and you can always send us in questions afterwards if you don't feel like doing it now. So just give you a moment to write any questions, and then we're going to wrap up. Okay? Right. Okay. I'm assuming everybody's a fast typer. If you did have questions, you'd have them in right now. Okay, folks, so I hope that's helped. Again, let me just summarize it. Number 1 is make a list of those things that upset you and try not to do them for a while. And number 2 is clear the reactive mind. This is the most important thing. And then, as I mentioned, I would love to have everybody on the Mind Explained course with me, and I will really do my very best to help you all individually to understand what is going on with this thing about negative emotions. So that not only you can help yourself, but you can also help somebody else. In Ireland, I don't know about everybody else, in Ireland, we love to help people. Love to help people. And it's great if you have some proper tools that you can use to help other people. And this will give you that, you know. Starting this Friday for the Mind Explained, yes. Yeah. The modules are done each as a separate unit. So literally, you can start any time. So even tonight, you can get going, and you'll get the next module, which is delivered as its own unit. So I'll make sure that you won't lose track. Okay, folks, I'm going to say goodnight to you now. The link is going to stay open. The chat is going to stay open. So if you want to check out that link, you can do so afterwards. So I want to say thank you to everybody on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram for your attention tonight. And for everybody on Zoom, thank you so much for your attention, for all your examples, for being there. I really appreciate it. So thank you to Nessa, Marta, Deirdre, Althea, Bindu, Claudia, Katya, Yasmin, Beatrice, Lisa, Keshan, Kimeshni, I missed you Kimeshi at the beginning, Florence and Gonzalo. Thank you so much everybody for your time tonight. I wish you an absolutely beautiful evening, and I really hope to see you on my Mind Explained course. I'd be delighted to have you. Okay everybody, thanks a lot. Bye.